I always encourage founders to think about the strategic business partner or executive assistant as a second brain. It's if you can find the person that you really mesh with, um, it is going to be a force multiplier for your success.
Welcome to another amazing episode of the Tech Business Roundtable podcast, brought to you by Equa.tech, the leader in digital marketing for tech companies. We want to first take a moment to thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and on social media and helping us grow week after week. Meet our host of today's TBR episode, Ryan Davies. Ryan is the Director of Marketing of Equa.tech and is a dynamic leader in driving business transformation through technology. Over to you, Ryan.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show. This is a podcast show dedicated to shining a spotlight on tech innovators, entrepreneurs, founders, and the compelling narratives behind the movements they've established. I'm your host, Ryan Davies, and I'm hosting today's discussion on the value of executive assistants for early-stage founders with Jessica McBride. Jessica, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to kind of branch out of just only talking about ChatGPT and AI and really focus on something that, I think is really important about supporting early stage founders, other, later stage founders, really anyone with the value of an executive assistant.
I think this is going to be a great topic. And, we have a lot of our audience that falls perfectly into this. Again, like you said, whether it's early stage, that's how we've kind of titled this, but it really, I think, is going to branch across to talk about the role, the evolution of the executive assistant, how people can really bring it in regardless of where they are in their journey and the importance for doing so. A little bit about you, Jessica. You're the visionary founder of Tech Savvy Assistant, and you've dedicated your career to revolutionizing the operations of administrative professionals. Jessica has a decade of experience in the field with seamlessly integrating cutting-edge technology like AI and ChatGPT into her work. And her primary mission is pretty clear and straightforward: to create strategies and tools that can streamline administrative tasks, but also redefine the roles of executive assistants, administrators, operations staff, virtual freelancers. You are a thought leader in this space and have invaluable insights into how to leverage AI and ChatGPT to supercharge administrative efficiency and foster strategic partnerships for executives and founders. I know you've led like a master class on this. You've been a keynote speaker on this. This is you're somebody that's absolutely perfect for this. And we talk a lot here again about upskilling, about a lot of grand ideas, but this is something with executive assistants that really, again, can provide such elite and immense value for founders or anybody on their journey. Before we dive too far in, your background as an executive assistant. Tell us a little bit more about what led you to build Tech Savvy Assistant and your experience.
Yeah, so I wasn't always an executive assistant, but I've worked in a lot of various admin operations type roles for most of my career. I started working at Enterprise, and I just kind of have like built my way up since then. And then in 2021, I had a really bad mental health breakdown because of a job that I was at. So I just kind of up and quit. I just one day was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I had a friend that was freelancing on a website called Upwork. And I was like, okay, I'll give this a go. I've got nothing to lose. And so I started doing virtual assistant work, just kind of picking up here and there what I could find. I eventually started working with a tech company based out of New York as like their virtual assistant. And it was, an early stage company, and they didn't really have anybody doing this work yet. So it was a new role, and I loved it. I was able to really kind of make it my own and, become like a culture leader and work with making a nice workspace for the, staff. I got to run a bunch of different initiatives, and it really kind of gave me all of this autonomy that I'd never had in a role before. But it was very much a golden handcuff situation. I was paid really well in US dollars, and then it converted to Canadian, like 35% more. So I was having a really good time for a while. And then in January this year, I was on vacation and I slipped and fell on a resort, and I hurt my knee really badly. And it basically rendered me like unable to walk for the rest of the time that I was there. And I have ADHD. So I was spending a lot of time on TikTok. It's like a dopamine slot machine, and was getting a lot of ChatGPT videos. It was really cool. Never heard of it before. Decided I would start testing it out. Started working, I was already in a bunch of different executive assistant communities just because it's a really lonely job. You're the only one usually, and you don't have a lot of people to talk to. So I started testing out a bunch of different scenarios that people were coming across in these different groups. And it's often things like being asked to create standard operating procedures or templates. So they're just looking to see like some kind of itinerary. But because everybody has like such top secret information, they're guarded, they're guarding for their executive.
Yeah.
It's hard to give out that information. So it's hard to know what you need to create. So I realized that ChatGPT worked really well for this, for all these like generalist one-off tasks that we need help with as executive assistants. ChatGPT ChatGPT can be that. It's worked so much better than Google in terms of giving you guidance on what you need to do. And so I wrote a guide, ChatGPT for executive assistants, that caught a bit of traction, and it's been building from there. But in February, out of the blue, I was laid off, and I was laid off with like 30% of the company, and then they laid off another 30% right after. So it really was not a good situation. And so I immediately was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm applying for jobs. I am picking up freelance work on Upwork again. And I'm also getting asked to do speaking events for ChatGPT and the more educational programs for admins. So I start working on that, and I have a series of job interviews, and I hate them all. Interviewing makes me feel like absolute garbage. I can't imagine going back into an office and doing some of the like more traditional in-office executive assistant work. I'd had just too much freedom and autonomy by that point. And so a couple months into this, I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be an executive assistant anymore, I don't think, because I haven't really been able to find that right like synergy, like relationship. And I don't think it's for me. And I think I'm going to lean into what I'm building with this ChatGPT education program. And at some point, a couple months in, I like named it Tech Savvy Assistant. And then by June, I was like, okay, I'm ready to like file for my corporation. I was like making enough money from speaking that I felt like, okay, like I can do this. And I've just kind of been settling, growing the community ever since. It started out with just like I had like a Facebook group, and now, I have all kinds of different social media pages, and we have a newsletter. And I just was speaking at the Admin Professionals Conference in Vegas back just this past October. I got to do a big keynote for like 850 people. So at some point, I just realized that I had built a brand and a business, and all just based off of like a fluke injury. But it's been such like an amazing experience. Like I know this is what I was meant to be doing because I'm working with the most amazing people. I love the people that I get to teach, and yeah, it's just kind of expanded from there. It's been, like I said, it's been a really weird year. I look at it's November, and I'm just like January, me could never have anticipated like where we would be at this point.
That's wild. I talked to a lot of founders, a lot of people who've started their own businesses, own revolutions, if you will, at sometimes, and change so much. And it seems like sometimes fate just finds you, and it's almost like you got pushed over on the resort to do that. To be like, well, at the time you're probably like, well, my vacation's ruined, everything sucks, I hate everything. Then come back, get later, what is happening? And all of a sudden it's just like, nope, these cards were just dealt to you the perfect way to help you provide this, not just for you, but now for so many other people. So, I mean, with that in mind, I want to talk more about, the role the executive assistant plays. And I think a lot of us hear executive assistant, and I mean, my mind always still goes there as probably the traditional way of I'm picturing the CEO in the office in the top tower that has the person following them around and is their eyes and ears type of a thing. But this is something that you really want to make sure is for everybody, like you said, for early stage founders, because it's so important to have somebody that keeps you organized and can be your eyes and ears when you're trying to do 300 things at once. And especially as a founder starting up, wow, does that ever take place, right? So tell us a little bit more about how, the importance of that executive assistant, and maybe that evolution of the role away from, maybe that traditional almost Hollywood feel of the person following around with the clipboard to what it actually can do and how it can increase productivity.
Something I find with like this younger generation of executives and founders and CEOs is they really don't know how to utilize an executive assistant. There is like the gender dynamic where a lot of times the executive assistant's like 85% industry of women. And so, there's like, I don't want to ask her to do things for me. My husband has an executive assistant and he's like, I don't know how to have her help me at all. And that's not uncommon because we want to make sure that like we're asking them to do valuable things. But I'm telling you that even as like an early stage founder myself, I got a virtual assistant back in June. Like, 4 or 5 months into what I decided was going to be a business, I was like, okay, I need someone who can help me accountable and help all these little things that like I know that I'm letting slip. Because when you're starting a business, you are your CFO, your CTO, your CEO, you're all of the O's. And it's a lot of pressure. And just to be able to offload some of the admin tasks that you're having to take time out of your day to do can be really, it frees up so much time for your creativity, for your thinking about what you want to do with your business. And I think that people don't even recognize it as an option sometimes. And it's a lot of it's control, like not knowing what to let go of.
Yeah.
But when we really look at, you can start with a virtual assistant who's going to handle basic tasks. Like they can help with your email, they can help with your scheduling, they can start to learn like what your preferences are and how you want to operate. And eventually, when this person gets to know you, they become more of a strategic business partner more than just a virtual assistant. It's really lonely to be a founder, and you don't always have someone that you can like toss ideas off of. But a good strategic business partner, executive assistant, can be that person for you because, especially as you bring on employees, you want to have your finger on the pulse of the organization. And people aren't going to talk to the CEO. It's just not going to happen. It becomes very unapproachable. But a really good strategic business partner is talking to everybody within the organization, and they are assessing the temperature. They're getting an idea of this is something that's going on internally that we should look at. When I became the executive assistant and got really bored with just scheduling and just doing some basic tasks, I started to do that to get to know everyone within the organization and start to piece together different problems. Like I was able to recognize that our CTO probably shouldn't be mailing laptops out still. So why don't I research a managed service provider and we can start looking at how we roll that out for an organization. And that's something that a CEO or a CTO doesn't really have the time to go and research all of these other things. So I always encourage founders to think about a strategic business partner or executive assistant as a second brain. It's if you can find the person that you really mesh with, it is going to be a force multiplier for your success because it's like having two of you.
I love that. So with that in mind, I mean, let's talk about like how do you get started in this? How do you hire your assistant? When is the timeline for it, right? Is it when you're feeling that burnout? Is it when you're, you've lost you're not sleeping? Is it when you're just like you said, you're letting tasks slip? What are the signs that you see where you're telling someone, look, it's time? And how, when somebody's already facing this burnout, do you coach somebody into, okay, here's how you go and hire one without creating more stress on your plate and things like that?
I think this is when recruiters come in really well, like specialized recruiting, because it's really hard to hire an executive assistant because it is very relationship based. You're less looking for someone with a certain, past experiences and more someone that fits the way that you work, that you can then mold to be your second person in charge. So for me, like I've done some hiring work in the past, and we kind of start off with taking in information from the founder about, their working style, what is important to them, what they would like, what they're stressed out about. For me, I was spending more time dreading doing my bookkeeping than it would have taken me to just do my bookkeeping. And it was like, okay, maybe it's time to like get somebody to help. My bookkeeping was pretty basic, so I could have a regular virtual assistant handle my bookkeeping for me. if you find that you're constantly like having to manage your schedule and it's stressing you out because you're getting behind on meeting invites, having somebody to monitor your email for you and organize that is going to free up hours of time and stress in your life. And I would say absolutely ask for help. It's worth the money to pay for a good recruiter who knows what to look for within like an executive assistant than to try and just do it yourself, because you didn't get hired in, or trained in HR or recruiting. We need to stop trying to like be everything and start recognizing that there are people who are experts that we can utilize. There's never been a time in history where like you could find such like a niche person to help you. Like if you need something, there is someone out there who is ready to help with that problem. It's just kind of where to find them. But I really find that on LinkedIn especially, there's a really engaged community of executive assistants that are eager and like they're looking to kind of start branching out, and they want a challenge. They're tired of just the standalone running a schedule tasks, and they're looking for the next level. And I think that this is such a great opportunity for them.
So tell me about a little bit more about, the tech savvy assistant itself, right? And what its role plays, not just for you, but for early stage founders, for other EAs, and how, any of our listeners can kind of take advantage of that, and what sort of tasks can be taken off of their plate, right? Because we want to make sure, again, we're providing value for all of our listeners here in terms of they come here and they go, okay, this is for me. I need to do this. Where do I start? What kind of roles can this kind of take on to sort of help them in that process to move forward?
There's obvious things like we can handle communications where you need to respond to this email and you don't have the time to respond to it. But also things like social media responses. So like you want your company to have a social media presence, but you don't have the time and the capacity to manage a social media, and social media is not really your expertise. Well, you can have a virtual assistant do that kind of thing. There's calendar and time management of deciding. Honestly, when I get so tired of just like burnout from business stuff, it is the decision fatigue that gets me more than anything, where it's like I need to reschedule this appointment and I don't even know where I need to reschedule it. And just having someone that you can rely on to be like, can you take over? And they will be able to drive that bus. There's itinerary planning for travel. If you do any business travel, I recently was working with the founder a couple months ago, and he wanted to go to a big convention in like San Francisco. So it was finding hotels for you, finding flights, finding the restaurants, all those things that you're going to need to do to be able to network properly and make those connections. You can have somebody research for you and plan out. And I would say that's probably one of our best strong points, because we have really high emotional intelligence and we can recognize what's really important for networking events. Expense reporting is something that's really big. I know that, like so that's for me a big struggle. I hate doing my expenses. So having them take that on and keep track of them for us is really great. Any special projects. So if you, for example, this is the time I rolled out for the CTO, the managed service provider. It's, you don't have the capacity to go and research all of these different vendors and figure out which is one's best. So have your admin do that for you. And yeah, so content creating as well. I think that's a pretty basic one that everybody knows what a virtual assistant can do for you is if you want to create social media content. It's really, I kind of talk about working with like an early admin as thinking about what can you teach like a basic intern? What is it that you can offload? Thinking about these small tasks. And that's also how we talk about using ChatGPT, for example, is what are tasks that you can use ChatGPT for? And if you're not ready for a virtual assistant and you're just like, I just want something to help me write emails or a thought partner. And that's how I always encourage admins to use ChatGPT for, is because Google is not great and hasn't been great for a really long time because of, SEO stuffing of all these different blogs, is we can get a really straightforward answer on how to proceed with building a business. For example, I use ChatGPT for business advice all the time because I'm a new business owner. I don't have an MBA. I didn't grow up around people that had a business, and I struggle sometimes to know like what is the next move. And so I'm able to use ChatGPT to kind of talk through all of the issues that I'm dealing with and get some like decent base level guidance of how I need to move forward. And I think that is one of the coolest things that has come from using ChatGPT and then also teaching it to the admins is like when you get so frozen and scared because you need to make a decision on behalf of the person you support, but you don't feel like you have good information to go on, like using ChatGPT to say, here's the situation, let's talk through it together is incredible. And it really helps like embolden them to be able to do their job better.
I love that. Do you have, I know you gave kind of a couple of examples there, but can you give us like an example, like a specific, I know you said like business decisions or things like that, because I think that could be a thing all on its own is an episode we can have is using ChatGPT as your assistant, right? To help you with that. But do you have a concrete example that you've used to say like, hey, you know what, here's an exact question. Here was the result I got out of it.
So I don't remember the exact prompt, but essentially it was, this is what my business does. This is the person that would most likely use my business. Here are the products that I already offer. And here's kind of, a little bit more information about what I do. Tell me some other projects that I could create. So tell me more digital products that I could do, or tell me ideas for presentations that I could create. Anytime I get asked to do a speaking event and they kind of give me like a vague idea of like what the topic will be, it's like I go to ChatGPT and it's like, okay, here's what I usually talk about. Here's my specialties. Here's the, theme of the conference. Can you help me come up with a presentation theme that I can then use? And same way, like with executive assistants, they're like, I need to plan for an event. Well, let's use ChatGPT to help us think about themes, because a lot of times we're given things like, hey, we're going to do this company event and the theme is synergy. Can you create an icebreaker around synergy? And we don't get paid enough to come up with things like that. So using ChatGPT to be like, can you create some synergy themed icebreakers is a really great one. And then also, getting asked to do speaking events like podcasts, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, can you provide us like some guiding questions? And then I just draw a blank. I just stare at them and I don't know where to start. So I can ask ChatGPT to kind of provide me with these like guiding questions that allow me to, I can speak to that a lot easier than it's going to be me just waiting and trying to come up with something to actually talk about.
Absolutely perfect. I mean, I've got stuff I can take away from here. I've been feverishly scribbling notes right now going, well, my life could get a little bit easier just from some of the nice information here. But I know for a lot of our listeners, that is the case that they've pulled away here too. And before we sign off on this episode, I would love to just get you to, tell us a little bit more where people can find you, connect with the tech savvy assistant and connect with you to learn more.
For sure. You can find me on LinkedIn under Jessica McBride. Feel free to send me a connect request. My website is techsavvyassistant.com, and I encourage everyone to subscribe to my newsletter that you can find on the website. I often do free events for members of my community. I'm doing an upcoming event soon about Zapier, about how executive assistants can begin to utilize automation tools. So we're always kind of building on the knowledge that we have. And yeah, you can find me on all the social media channels. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and I have a Facebook community if anybody's interested in joining that as well. But yeah, you feel free to reach out.
Absolutely perfect. Everyone take advantage of that offer, because I think there's a lot of ways that we could improve our work lives and in turn personal lives just by picking on some of the information that Jessica has given us here and has the resources she has available for us online as well. So with that, I think we'll bring this episode to a close, and I want to take a minute to thank Jessica McBride for this amazing podcast, The Value of Executive Assistants for Early Stage Founders. And I also want to thank our listeners. We cannot do what we do without you. So until we meet again with another amazing TBR episode, I'm your host, Ryan Davies. Thanks, everybody. Take care out there.
Thank you, Ryan, for this amazing episode. Thank you for joining us on the Tech Business Roundtable podcast. We hope our discussions have sparked new ideas, expanded your knowledge, and empowered you on your entrepreneurial journey. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and write us a positive review. Thank you for listening to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show.